Earlier this year, we got the Palkia League Battle deck, very strong deck, and I think it's actually going to get better with time, with Chen Pao out now, and potentially more water text coming in the future. I think this has been a really solid League Battle deck. Now, that was a couple of months ago, and if we look at the way that Pokemon have released these League Battle decks in the past, I think we're due for some more League Battle decks very soon, and I wanted to go into detail on that, so let's go. I'm Jeff from inthirdperson.com. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I want to preface this by saying I don't work at TPCI. I don't have any insider information, but based on past history, we can connect the dots on what's going on with League Battle decks. And if you come with me on this journey, you will see that we should be due for an announcement on 2 new League Battle decks very soon. We'll have to go back to the beginning when they first started releasing League Battle decks in 2020. The first drop, it was 2 League Battle decks, the Pikarom and Reshizard decks, which both came out in May of 2020. Later that year, they dropped the Zacian V League Battle deck in November 2020, where they established the fact that they are going to drop 3 League Battle decks per year. Let's go over to 2021. They changed the box, so we've got this new smaller profile box. We've got 4 holofoil cards here, and these are now level 2 decks. They have a new level system, and the Inteleon one was released in May of 2021, and then later that year they released the Rapid Strike and Single Strike Urshifu decks, which came out in December of 2021. Again, they've dropped 3 decks in a year, and we got 1 in the spring and 1 in the winter. And now let's go over to 2022. We got the Ice Rider and Shadow Rider League Battle decks a little later than we normally do. We got these in July of 2022. And then we got the Mew League Battle deck in November of 2022. And these ones actually level 3 decks. They have 6 holo cards in them. So we can see that over here. And once again, 3 League Battle decks. These ones are level 3s this time. And then most recently, we got the Palkia League Battle deck in May. And that's kind of back on track there, which means we're probably due, based on the pattern we have seen here, we are due for 2 more League Battle decks before the end of the year, most likely in the November-December timeframe. And in particular, well, on top of that, based on how they've announced them, they usually announce the winter decks around this time. So for example, last year, they announced Mew League Battle deck on August 25th. And I remember this vividly because I was entering Fan Expo here in Toronto as this news dropped, and I was like, oh my god, I have to rush home. And I didn't rush home. We enjoyed our time at Fan Expo, but I then recorded the League Battle deck news that night, put out the video the following morning, and yeah, thank you for the views, by the way. 2,500 was very good for me at the time, and just good in general. So yeah, late August is when the Mew League Battle deck got revealed. August 26th is when the Urshifu League Battle decks got revealed, and September 4th, 2020 is when the Zacian League Battle deck got revealed. So if all goes according to, past precedent, and Pokemon doesn't really stray too far from their plans for how they release stuff, we should be due for the next League Battle deck announcement, I predict, late August, at the latest early September. So with that in mind, what could we be expecting? And so this is kind of where I think there's still some connecting the dots here, but this is going to be a little more on the speculation territory here. So I'm prefacing this yet again. I think we're pretty certain it's going to be 2 League Battle decks, and I think that they're going to be V-based League Battle decks. And the reason I say that is that, one, they don't normally pick the latest templates or the latest deck archetypes for these decks. For example, by the time they released Palkia had been out for about a year. Mew had been out for about a year. Shadow Rider and Ice Rider had been out for about a year, and that's kind of the current precedent. Yes, the Single Strike and Rapid Strike Urshifu were less than a year, but these were still a little bit of older archetypes. I think the newest one was Inteleon, but then that wasn't necessarily the strongest one. And on top of that, they generally, we've seen here when we go back to the Sun and Moon era versus Sword and Shield, they use this entire calendar year and were releasing them in this sort of bigger box, and then they saved the new calendar year for a new box format. So I think that they're going to ride out the rest of 2020 in a box of this style, which is this format with the 6 holo foil cards, and they're most likely V-based. And what decks could they possibly be? They gotta be I think they have to be decks that have that work with mostly 6 holofoil cards, mostly V Max, V Star, things that look very fancy on the box while also being pretty competitive. Most of the decks that they pick are at worst rogue tier and oftentimes are very strong or even top tier archetypes like the Mew V Max League Battle deck. And if you watched my earlier video, way earlier this year, where I predicted the archetypes, you already know what's coming. But just in case you missed that one, I think one of the easy picks here is Giratina V-Star. It is an incredibly strong Pokemon. It's an incredibly popular Pokemon. And when we look at the deck list, it is a deck list that works pretty well in a League Battle deck format. You can just release 3/3 Giratina, and that's your 6 holofoil cards. Or you could drop one of the Giratina V or the V-Star and replace it with Radiant Greninja, and then put pretty much this whole deck list would work. The cards that wouldn't work would be Battle VIP Pass, which is Regulation Mark E. That's going to rotate presumably a couple of months after the release of this deck. So it's probably not going to have that. That does kind of suck for a lot of decks, but it's not necessarily the end of the world for this. You can just sub this out with something else. Escape Rope is technically rotating next rotation. I think that's going to get a reprint before it rotates out. That feels like an evergreen card to me. And then Energy Recycler is also going to rotate. This could potentially see a reprint, but they could also just throw in an extra Super Rod or two to substitute for the Energy Recycler. Otherwise, this list would work pretty well in a League Battle deck format. The other deck that I think is going to be released as the next League Battle deck drop is Lugia V-Star. This is once again another really popular Pokemon, also still very competitive, and I think it works in the League Battle deck format. We can use this list as an example. Again, I don't think this is going to be the exact list. I'm just using this as a frame of reference. I think that you could release a League Battle deck with 3/3 Lugia. You could also go 2/2 Lugia and then put in 2 Luminions. I don't know the exact configuration. I don't think we see the Weirdeer or the Drapion. I think Weirdeer actually rotates soon. Oh, no, that doesn't rotate. So yeah, there is a chance we could see a Weirdeer V end up in this deck, but there are some options here for configurations with either 3/3 Lugia, maybe you squeeze in a Luminion or a Weirdeer in there as well. I think that whatever version you get, we're probably going to get 4 copies of this Snorlax as sort of your primary attacker. You might be able to get a non-holo foil version of this Luxray in this, and otherwise, I mean, Zinnia's Resolve is I think this is rotating soon, but I think that this list is pretty rotation safe. And this is example, Avery isn't a staple in Lugia V-Star. This could be easily replaced, and I think that this archetype would fit very well in the League Battle deck format. As for some outside picks, it kind of falls off a cliff from there if we're connecting the dots on highly competitive decks with popular Pokemon that are potentially sell really well and work with 6 holofoil cards. The only one I could think of that has an outside chance is Goodra, but it's basically just Giratina V-Star, but worse. And I know they play a little differently and all that, but they both kind of share the same Lost Zone engine, and Goodra is not as popular as Giratina and not as strong as Giratina. So I don't think we're going to see Gudra as the next League battle deck, but I personally would like it, and it technically would fit a lot of the criteria for being in a League battle deck. But if we go down the list of V-based decks, again, assuming it's V-based decks based on past precedent of how they release these, there kind of isn't a lot of options after that. We've already gotten Mew, and that entire deck rotates next year. Arceus Giratina they could do, but if you have to split between the Arceuses and the Giratinas and you've only got 6 slots for holo cards, I think this deck ends up running a little too thin. Like, are you going to go 2/2 Arceus and then 1/1 Giratina? That feels kind of bad to me. Arceus Duraludon rotates next year. Inteleon Urshifu, though both of those Pokemon rotate next year. What else is on here? Palkia, we've already gotten. Regieleki, we'll get to that in a second, but I don't think that on its own is enough. And if you include the Miraidon, it gets a little weird because of V's and EX's mixing, but again, we'll get to that in a sec. Arceus Regidrago would be kind of weird because you also have to include all the dragon Pokemon, and a lot of those are V-based as well, so that's going to be awkward. Umbreon rotates next year. Dialga's not. You could 3/3 Dialga with the Magnazones. You could, but I don't think that deck is competitive enough. And yeah, Darkrai is actually losing some really big pieces next year. Both of the Moltres are rotating out. So as you go down, I just don't think there's that many other viable options. There is this Arceus archetype that I saw from Japan that I actually really want to cover. This deck looks kind of sick, right? So imagine you get 2/2 Arceus, and maybe you get 2 Pidgeot EXs, and then you can use the Pidgeot EX to grab a card of your choice, and you can use it to Sharon's Care Loop. And we've seen variations of this deck work in the past, right? Arceus Inteleon was a big archetype where you could grab Sharon's Care over and over again to heal the Arceuses. And technically, you could do this with 2/2 Arceus and 2 Pidgeot and release that as a package. However, we've seen Arceus a bunch. We've seen Arceus released in multiple collector sets, and we've seen Arceus in the Trainer's Toolkit. So I don't know if that disqualifies it from being a League battle deck, but I think this is an outside chance of making it. Now, the other thing, and this is like the way outside chance. What if it's an EX deck? And again, I've stated that they usually reserve the calendar year to make a big change like this. And we've already seen what the level 1 League battle deck or EX battle decks look like in the new format. We've seen what the level 2 battle decks look like going forward. I don't think we get a level 3. And part of that is the, one last chance to squeeze out the V Pokemon. I also think there's probably going to be structural changes next year. If you notice what the level 2 boxes look like before versus what they look like now, one of them is it's a different style of box, and we've got this like plastic window here. You can see the actual cards. They got rid of that, and now that this is just a box and it has the cards printed on it. On top of that, the old level 2 decks had 4 holo cards, and the new ones only have 3, which are indicated here. You're getting 2 Quaquavels or 2 Meowscaradas plus a Radiant Pokemon. And I think that we're probably going to see some sort of shakeup next year once they release EX League battle decks. But for the time being, I'm pretty sure it's going to be a V-based deck. But you know what? Just in case they pull a fast one on us and they actually release a League battle deck, what's it going to be? I've thought about this, and I don't necessarily feel great about my picks. I think as of right now, the obvious one seems like Gardevoir. Gardevoir is an incredibly strong Pokemon. It's got the amazing ability that lets it attach energy from the discard pile, and it has some really great attackers right now. However, a lot of those cards actually rotate next year. The big ones including this Chilling Reign Gardevoir with the Brainwave attack and Zacian V from Celebrations. Both of these rotate. And if you don't have those, what are you putting in here instead? And I don't necessarily think Gardevoir has the attackers at this point in time, but that doesn't mean it's not going to get them later. So this feels like it could still be in there, but it might not be the Gardevoir that we know. I don't think that the Pokemon Company would release this variation of Gardevoir, knowing that this like 3 of its main attackers are going to rotate very soon, relatively soon. So Gardevoir, pretty good chance, but probably not this version of Gardevoir would be in the running. Chen Pao is, I thought this was going to be a lock for the League Battle Deck treatment. However, it already got released as an EX Battle Deck, and we've never seen a Pokemon, like a deck archetype, go from level 1 to level 3. So it would be a bit unprecedented for the Pokemon Company to release a Chen Pao League Battle Deck after already releasing it as a level 1 deck. I can see like the confusion from consumers, especially if you're just getting into the game. Like, what's the difference between this Chen Pao deck and this other Chen Pao deck? So I don't think we're gonna get this as a League Battle Deck, but man, it would be really good as a League Battle Deck. We've already got like 3 Chen Paos. The Arceus, Arceus or Palkia in this spot. You can debate whether those need to be in there or not. The Greninja would be great. The Baxcaliburs would be in there, and like all of the items and stuff can be pretty rotation safe. Avery, you could replace. I know that one's rotating next year, but you can just swap that out with something else. And otherwise, this deck archetype would work amazing in a League Battle Deck format. But again, we've already seen it as a level 1, and there's no precedent for a level 1 deck being upgraded to level 3. Again, some other outside picks here. Ting Lu is one that I really like, and we do have the Koraidon in there. Maybe you sell it as a Koraidon deck, but really it's a Ting Lu deck. This would be a lot of fun, but I don't think Ting Lu is strong enough competitively to justify the League Battle Deck treatment. Though if they did put this out, I would buy this day 1 because I love playing the Ting Lu deck. Miraidon feels like it actually would work pretty well in a League Battle Deck format as well, because we do have a handful of Miraidons, and then its other V-based attackers, your Raichu and Raikou, don't actually rotate till the following rotation, so you're still going to get like a full year of these Pokemon if they decide to put them in there. And then most of its trainers and supporters are fairly rotation safe as well. So if I had to pick, I think Gardevoir and Miraidon are probably the safest bets. Well, Miraidon's probably the safest bet. I know it's not the strongest archetype, but yeah, this is where it gets kind of weird, and I'm not quite ready to put my foot down and say like, yeah, these are going to be it. I'm not as confident in these, but I do think that these 4 archetypes are at the very, maybe not Ting Lu, but like Chen Pao maybe loses by technicality, but like the front runners would at this point in time would be like a Miraidon and a Gardevoir, with Gardevoir having some big question marks. And last but not least, I think this will probably get a League Battle Deck eventually, but now we're going way into conspiracy territory. Charizard, Terra Charizard EX. I think this would work awesome in that format. At the time of this recording, this isn't out yet, but by the time you watch this, Charizard EX will be out. It's probably going to be, at the very least, a very good deck. Maybe not top tier, but a solid deck. Charizard sells. Everybody knows this, and having a good Charizard deck out in store shelves is probably a good thing for the Pokemon Company. And then this looks like it could be a competitively viable deck. There's some ways of potentially splitting, like you don't necessarily need the Entei or the Delphox or the Lumineon, but yeah, there's ways of making this work in a League Battle Deck format. So yeah, Charizard might be the one going forward. Who knows? So yeah, there we go. Lots of speculation on my part, and I did my best to try and back up my points and speculation. Again, I have no inside information, just using all of the information out there to try and connect the dots, and I think we'll find out soon enough how right or wrong I was in this video in the coming weeks, right? We're gonna find out pretty soon if I was right. Again, I think we're getting the announcement late August, early September for 2 new League Battle decks. I think they're going to be V-based decks, but if I'm wrong, I threw out some examples of EX Battle decks that it could be as well. But yeah, there we go. I hope you enjoyed the video. I really hope and pray that I'm right on at least some of this stuff, or I'm going to look really bad. I might have to take down the video. Who knows? But anyway, I got to get going. Thank you so much for watching. You can find me on all the things: YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, the platform formerly known as Twitter, and Instagram at @InThirdPerson. You can find me on Twitch at @InThirdPerson, where I stream the Pokemon trading card game every Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And check out the website, inthirdperson.com, for more articles and videos on video games, board games, and other nerdy pursuits. So until the next one, I'll see you later. Bye-bye. Where's my outro screen? Where'd I put it? Oh, it's over here. Thank you. Later.